Ladies and gentlemen, it's a very warm welcome to this great webinar that we are going to discuss the insights, the outcomes of the baseline, FoRB baseline survey that Procmura commissioned not long ago. And I am your host, Sam Abuya, Procmura's Communication Officer. And today in the studio, we are really privileged to have our GA with us here. And we also have our project officer here. He will introduce himself before we get into getting a keynote or an opening remark from a very able general advisor who is with us here in the studio. So I think at this point I want to, because you have a bishop in the house, I think it's only proper if we started with a word of prayer.
Let us pray. We thank you, our God, for your great mercies for our lives, for keeping us by your grace and bringing us this far to this day and this hour. Thank you for this program, the project of forum of religion or belief. Thank you for the work done so far by the various teams and individuals. Thank you for this webinar program to present the survey findings. Lead and guide us. Open the channels. Open our minds. Open our hearts. Lord, in the end, we can chart a common path with clarity from you. Direct our path. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, our General Advisor. At this point, I want to give it to my colleague, who is Dola. He will introduce himself and we'll have the honors to do us the introduction, a bit of the introduction of our panelists today. And just to mention, today we're taking a focus on Kenya and Cameroon, and in another episode we'll bring you another episode of that will focus on Nigeria. For today we are focusing on Kenya and Cameroon. So Dola, you're most welcome. Give us an intro of the webinar and an intro of the panelists that we have today.
Thank you so much, Sam. Let me begin by still apologizing for the delay. Please bear with us. It was ideally beyond us, but thank God we are finally here. To begin with, my name is Nicholas Dola. I'm the project officer in charge of Freedom of Religion Belief project that is under Digni or sponsored by Digni. And I want to take this opportunity to welcome you. Procmura recently was privileged to have to start a project on freedom of religion of belief, specifically women, that is being implemented in 3 different countries, that is Kenya, Nigeria, and Cameroon. And as part of this important project, we needed to start with a baseline survey to basically highlight where the issue of FoRB, especially violations of women, are at in the 3 different countries. That's the reason why this important activity was carried out, specifically to understand the magnitude of FoRB in the 3 different countries, and secondly, to identify some of the causes and the consequences of the same, and thirdly, to begin to think or develop what will a way forward look like in terms of interventions. So that's why we needed to carry out this activity. And as I said at the beginning, it was specifically to kickstart the project. So it was very, very important for Procmura to engage in this, brought in a lot of lessons, a lot of revelations, as you'll hear from the presenters.
That's true.
And we are looking forward to this. Allow me then to welcome you again, but that is basically the background to this. Even though this is a new project, but Procmura as an organization has been working on FoRB. So this is basically to add to what has been already done in the past and will continue doing. Yeah.
So basically what you're saying, we focused in 3 regions, namely?
We focused in Kenya, and that's specifically the coast of Kenya. We did in Nigeria, or the project targets Nigeria, but in the northern part of Nigeria and southwest Cameroon.
Okay.
So while we are mentioning the countries, but there are very specific regions that we are targeting with this particular project.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm aware that the person who led the whole process is with us today here in the webinar.
Yes. Our able consultant, Dorcas, is here with us, and I think we'll welcome her to probably introduce herself at some point, and maybe to just share with us what it looked like in terms of a process.
Okay, yes. Thank you. For as we said, today we are focusing on Nigeria, Cameroon and Kenya. Then in another episode we bring the Nigeria phase. That is. Okay, so in the panel we have Dr. Regina Watanyi, who is joining us from Cameroon, and we also have Dr. Evans Mwangi, who is joining us from the coastal area of Kenya, Mombasa, to be very specific. And we also have our able consultant, Dorcas Karaoke, who led the whole process. And as I mentioned in our introduction, we are really privileged to have with us in studio our very able general advisor, Bishop. Karibu sana. I know you've learned some Swahili at least. Karibu.
Asante.
Yeah, so you can open this conversation for us. Maybe you can tell us why FoRB is important to Procmura and why this baseline survey was also very important as far as the whole project is concerned.
Thank you very much for welcoming me. And just as we all began, let me also add my voice to their apologies. We know a lot of them have been online for a long time. We are nearly 1 hour behind, which is no small time. And so we are very sorry that we kept you online for that long. Having said that, my point is very brief, but to call all of us our attention to the reality of religious plurality or plurality in the world today. Almost every part of the world, we have religions, different religions. And we should all be conscious of the fact that no religion is an island of its own. And we are also in a generation where we will always have other religions beside us, other faiths by our side. Having come to that point, there's the need for us all to learn how not only to tolerate, but also to forbear and to also accept people of different faiths. And not only to accept them, but to allow people the freedom to choose religion or to make the choice of their own religion. We should give them the opportunity to practice and the freedom as far as possible. Not only to practice, but also to live out their faith. And so FoRB is a very important project for Procmura. And we want to encourage all of us, especially in those regions that are targeted or areas that are targeted for the implementation of this phase of FoRB. We want to say thank you to the consultants and the people who went out to do the survey, and we encourage everybody in those respective countries to put their shoulders to the wheel so we can grind the experimental phase and see how it goes. So I just say thank you to everybody, and to Dola and his team and their consultants. We say we are very grateful to you. Thank you. Asanteni.
Asanteni indeed. For those who are still new to Swahili, when GA says Asanteni, he's basically saying thank you. Thank you for learning some Swahili. That's great, and we're very happy. As I mentioned, we also have in the panel the consultant, and because my colleague Dola here was part and parcel of the whole process, and I want to give him the honor of introducing, or rather welcoming, the consultant and other speakers.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Bishop, for those kind remarks. Like my colleague Sam has mentioned, we are privileged today to have Dr. Evans from the coast of Mombasa.
Mm-hmm.
We have our very own Regina Otanyi,
Mm-hmm.
doctor,
Mm-hmm.
also coming in all the way from southwest Cameroon.
Mm-hmm.
Regina, feel very welcome. And of course, our own consultant, Dorcas,
Mm-hmm.
Karaoke.
Mm-hmm.
Let me then take this opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to welcome Dorcas, if you are able to hear us. And we just want you to share with us what this looked like in terms of the process before we hear from the coordinators about the findings and the rest. So if you can hear us, Dorcas, please, this is your time.
Dorcas, please, if you can unmute, and if possible, you can just switch on your camera, then just share with us the insight and the whole process.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I've actually been facing a lot of technicalities from when the meeting. So apparently my laptop cannot enable video. If I enable video, it kicks me out of the meeting. So I think we'll just have to work it that way.
Okay,
So
there is no problem, Dorcas.
So I just wanted to share insights as I had been requested by Dola about the baseline, which Asar Consultancy Kenya Limited conducted some few months ago. So what happened, the first thing was to go through the terms of reference that was shared to us so that we can understand what Procmura is looking for in regard to this project. So being a religion and belief kind of project and targeting sub-Saharan Africa for women. So we were looking at what are some of the key questions that are being raised or rather emphasized in the terms of reference, as well as the scope. And also another addition was also looking at the log frame. Because basically when you're having a baseline study, you need to look at indicators, or rather to collect the first matrices, or rather the first targets for your project. So initially what happened, we raised the issue of the log frame, because when we were looking at the log frame, it would present challenges for us to collect information, because most of the information on the log frame were numbers. But when you look at the way the indicators were formulated, it would definitely pose a problem to us. So what we did as a next step was to redo the log frame to ease the baseline. And we created indicators to help us at least collect information for the baseline. Then after we had agreed on that, we wrote our inception report, and our inception report detailed our methodology, how we understand the terms of reference and the kind of methods that we are going to use to conduct the baseline study. So the baseline study actually used a mixed methods approach, where we are using mixed tools and mixed methods. So we had the qualitative part of collecting data as well as the quantitative part of collecting data. The quantitative part of collecting data was to help us answer certain questions in the terms of reference, as well as to help us to get the first targets for the indicators. And we also created our tools. So initially, as a consultancy, we had only two tools. We had the quantitative tool, which was a survey, and also we had a focus discussion. But Procmura wanted also some insights from key persons, and we brought in the key informant interview. So we used three. Used the survey, and also we used focus group discussions, as well as the key informant guide. So after that, we trained our data collectors. After we agreed that these tools now are better, they are going to collect what we are looking for, we trained data collectors. So based on based on the scope of the baseline, as well as the resources that were at hand, it was decided that Procmura is going to deploy her own data collectors. And for us, our role was just to train. So we trained the data collectors and guided them on the process and what is expected, as well as how to collect data in a manner that it will also make sense to us as people who will be analyzing and interpreting the data that is coming from the field. So we showed them how every tool should be filled. That is the survey, how the survey should be filled, as well as how FGDs should be conducted and how to ensure that you capture as much information as possible, as well as how the key informant guide will be done. Then after that, they were ready for data collection. But before that, we ensured that, that the app that we were using for the survey, that everybody had it. We were using Kobo Collect. So we assisted the various data collectors to have the app on their phone and to also download the tool because that is the tool that was being used. And we created the tool in a manner that you can collect data both offline and online. So even if they go to a place that they don't have internet, they can still collect the data and later on upload the information that they have. So after that, we had at least around 8 days of data collection, which was done in Nigeria, that is northern Nigeria, as well as southwest Cameroon and the coast region of Kenya. So for us, our task as a consultancy was just to track how the information is coming. And as we were tracking how information is coming, we would raise concerns. For example, maybe something we can see that something is not coming along well, or rather we are not seeing responses as fast as they should. As time was moving, we were raising that concern. So depending on how each team was collecting, we noticed that people shared the qualitative aspect of data faster, meaning that people were able to collect information from FGDs and the key informant interviews, which were given to us. And then later, we were concluding with the surveys, because every team was supposed at least to collect data from 129 respondents across board. So in total, we had 384. So after the data collection, we closed the data collection process and we archived our tools. And now what was remaining was to do compiling, analysis, interpretation, and reporting. And this is where the bulk of work is. There's a lot of analysis that was done, that is for the quantitative, which was using JASP. JASP is a very friendly data analysis software, and you do not even need to pay money, provided you have it on your desktop. It works very well, the way Starter would work and the way SPSS would work. So we did our analysis, we interpreted our information, and we wrote the report. And the first thing we did was to do the analysis of the quantitative data. Then we came back and did the analysis of the qualitative data, so that it becomes easier for us to match information along the quantitative information that was coming. So that whatever that is being shared, or rather is being seen from the quantitative data, we can give it strength from the qualitative aspect. And that is what we did. And you notice that in the report, Depending on the questions, you'll notice that there is the analytics part of it, and there is the explanation that was coming out from the FGDs as well as the key informant interviews. They were going side by side. And also we did literature review. So literature review is whereby we were looking at documents. We were looking at the project document. Then we went further to look at what is information that is there that can support whatever we are doing. So we were looking at the status of freedom of religion across board, looking at some of the things that are coming out, or rather that are predominant in literature in regards to Cameroon, Kenya, and Nigeria. And we also wrote a literature review. We also wrote on instruments, legal instruments that speak about freedom of religion and belief. And what we could get a lot was religious freedom, not the aspect of freedom of religion and belief. Religious freedom is what you would get a lot of information on. And that is what we wrote about. And we also wrote about the status, as well as how various countries are trying to implement the various instruments, as well as the various challenges that are there when it comes to the implementation of those instruments, or rather enforcing that right, because it's actually a right. Then after that, we merged all our report, as well as the conclusions, the recommendations that we could see from the whole exercise, and we presented our first draft. So the first draft was corrected internally, and we got feedback from the Procmura team, whereby they gave insights. Do you have something to correct? Do you have something to add? And all that. So after we did our first correction, we presented our second draft. In the second draft is the one that was used for the validation exercise. And the validation exercise brought stakeholders on board, or rather the team, the Procmura team, to listen to the findings, give insights to what they had, and then thereafter we used that to present the very final draft that had everything, that had all tools that were being used, as well as those ones who had participated in the whole process, and also the ethical consideration that we are looking at, and even the recommendations that Procmura can use to be able to implement this project. And they're all detailed in the report. And we also included the challenges that we faced as we were collecting data, which are also documented. And the reason for highlighting the challenges is to help us so that when we have a midterm, or rather an endline survey, is that we put into consideration some of the things that we experienced, because they are lessons that we can use. So we can say in a nutshell that is the process for the baseline. So I think I'll just make it as brief as it is. And maybe if there's any question, and I can be able to respond.
Thank you very much, Dorcas, for that journey through the baseline survey. Most importantly, we also thank you from this end of Procmura for having taken up that huge challenge to journey with us through the baseline survey. I hope you'll be able to stay online just in case there are questions, because what we want to do next is to jump into the presentation by the two coordinators. That's Regina and Daktari. So I'll request that you just stay online a bit until we get to where there could be comments and questions. But thank you very much. Having said that, allow me then to invite Dr. Regina to, in the next 5 minutes or so, if that is doable, to just take us through a brief of the outcomes and the findings and the recommendations, and generally also her take about this whole process. I would have started with you, Dr. Evans, but you are the host. So we'll start with somebody who is not the host. Then you'll come immediately after that. So Dr. Regina, if you are ready, please, and if we can see your face, that will be good too. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dollars. I greet all the panelists. I'm elated and glad that I'm seeing our general advisor, our bishop.
Thank you.
Glad to see the bishop. Greetings to everybody in the panel and those who are online. We want to start by thanking the Promora Head Office for giving us this opportunity to carry out this baseline study. As the appointed female coordinator for Promora activities relating to FoRB in Cameroon, we are really blessed to have some online baseline studies. Once we were there in Kenya some few months ago, we've been appointed and we'll be informed of our FoRB program that is coming to Cameroon, Nigeria, and Kenya. And in Cameroon, I'll talk specifically for now on the southwest of Cameroon. We were given an assignment, as explained by Dorcas, to carry out a baseline survey on the violations of FoRB in relations to women. We were given the tools and we used the tools. We had 3 aspects of this survey. One was online survey, where all the results went directly to the agency. And second was a focus group discussion. We had a focus group discussion with the women and a focus group discussion with religious leaders. And also we had one interview with the KII, the key informant interview. And the key informant interview was the regional delegate for women empowerment for the Southwest region. And the key findings that we had in this online survey, we look at the practice of FoRB in the Southwest region of Cameroon, and we realized that during the focus group discussions with the women's leader, some were innocent about FoRB, some had ideas about FoRB, which is freedom of religion or belief. From this, some members discovered that they have not been having the freedom to worship or to practice their religion. And we realized that there were a lot of discriminations, including violations, including insecure environments. And from the focus group discussion, we realized that from the experiences from the women are being accused, for example, by their spouses if they go to church and come late. They are being violated, kicked out of their homes by their husbands. For example, we have situations where one of the women reported that, especially they who are Catholics, they are not expected to attend any other denomination or to attend any other worship service apart from the Catholics. Cameroon, presently, we are being faced by a socio-political problem. And in the Southwest region, since 2017, we have been faced with a serious crisis. And this crisis has affected our worship lifestyle. And because of this problem, most of the churches have been affected. Most of the worship houses have been burned down. And in the course of this discussion with the female leaders, we realized that in some of the worship houses, the women were not allowed to go to church again. Most women, there are some period here in the southwest region of Cameroon where women's rights has been violated, as noted. Women have been refused from participating in religious activities following the violation of human rights in our area. And all of this, we realize that because of the separatist activities, women cannot worship freely. Some of our cultures violate the rights of girl child to education. From our discussion, the girl child's place is only in the kitchen. And we realize that some of our Muslim girls have been refused to go to school in some of our government institutions where they compel the girl child to shave their hair and are not allowed to put on their hijab. And all of this is a violation of FoRB, which affects also the rights of education of a girl child. We also realized in the focus group discussion that most of our young girls, especially the Muslim and even Christians, are being forced to early marriages. And because of these cultural practices, the children, they drop out from school. And all of this has affected the younger girls, especially those who are Muslims. We also realize that in the course of our discussion, we also have expounding situation of traditional barriers that violates women's rights to freedom of belief and worship. Some women leaders pointed out the aspect of inheritance laws where some traditions do not permit women to inherit the properties of their husbands. And they are considered as second-class citizens. Some tribes in the Southwest, they also practice what we call genital mutilation. And if you avoid that, you will be sanctioned by the people in the community. We also realize that in the course of the discussion, women are not permitted to be at the front role in worship. Our Muslim female leaders, they told us that they are always at the back part. They are not really permitted to freely express their leadership roles. We have situations where women are being forced, are being vandalized, are being tortured when they come late from their worship houses. And we see that this is not good. Summarily, I would say that because of the socio-political context, there's instability in the southwest region of Cameroon. Women cannot freely worship. Some Sundays, you hear they have kidnapped a religious leader. They have killed women, especially women who have relationship or they are married or they have some affairs with military people. They are being killed by separatists for having affair. Church houses are being closed, and women are the people who suffer. Their children are being killed. Most of the young girls and young boys are being killed. Some of them are presently in Nigeria as refugees. 7 weeks, especially Christian Sunday is to rest. The people cannot rest. They are all in bushes. Even those who are Muslim cannot freely go to the mosque, because when the separatists give us orders that people should not come out, nobody goes to church. Some of them have the idea that it is a Western type of practice. Why should people worship when they are struggling for their independence? No worship. People should go home. And because of this crisis in the northwest part of Cameroon, we have influx of many boys they call of the ethnic clan called Bororo. They are all now in the capital of the Southwest region. There's also discrimination now going on. The Christians are afraid that the Muslims, they will come now and they will try to take their children. So there's already this discrimination between the Christians and Muslims, and extends right up to what we call our freedom of religion or belief. Nowadays, Christians, some don't even enter into the taxis being driven by the young Muslims. Muslims, some of them who are Bororos, they don't have, if you want to transport their drinks, they'll tell you if it is alcohol, you cannot enter their taxis. And all of this discrimination moves right up to worship. It moves right up to worship and our cultural backgrounds. So from the focus group discussions with the women leaders, we really have a summary that the violations of FoRB have a disproportionately impact on women, as evidenced by the restriction of their religious practices. Women don't go to church regularly. Their leadership roles and even access to education. The cultural practices that limit women's autonomy and agency further contribute to the erosion of their FoRB. Summarily, early and forced marriages are prevalent in the Muslim community in our area. These practices often disregard girls' autonomy and can lead to religious secession. Those who are married by Christians are being discriminated. They are being discriminated, right? Those who are married by Christians. The Christians who are married by Muslim men are being discriminated. Women interfaith marriages face discrimination, and there's also pressure to convert, straining relationship with both families and communities. So those are the aspects that we called when we had our focus group discussions with the women leaders. It's really a pity. Some of us were in our community, we didn't know that people are really facing a lot of, women are really facing a lot of tension when it comes to their rights to worship. When we met with the religious leaders, we had a report that if not of the imam of our area, the capital city of Buea, who went and intervened for our Muslims, I don't think that they would have been going to school, because the children will go to school from 1, from 2, the parents will go and withdraw them to go for early marriages. And so the imam of our area had to intervene, call a meeting of the Muslims and advise them that our culture and our faith should not disturb the education of the young girls. Even with that, most of the Muslims, they are not still happy with that decision. Even the Christians at primary school level, they'll tell you to go for early marriages. Their friends are there working, they are bringing money through their husbands. You people are only here, you are not bringing money. So it's really a really taboo. They don't allow the young girls to freely go to school and to freely do what they want to do. And it came to a level where the regional delegate of education was consulted to permit the young ladies to go to school with their hijab, because it's not permitted to put your hair up or go to school. it's not permitted to shave, but the imam had to intervene and made a regional delegate for education. And the young girls who are Muslim were permitted, they are being permitted now to put on their hijab when they are going to school in government schools. But in the denominational schools, they are not permitted. The aspect of marriages, we realized from the religious leaders, especially from the imam, who said for him, presently, if they come to him that a young girl wants to get married, he will ask them to officially try to confirm that they in our area, Muslim women are being violated even in the hospitals. When they go there, their husbands do not allow them to give birth because they don't want a Christian man to receive their children to give birth. So we had a lot of discussion with the Muslim leaders, with the religious leaders. And from the recommendation, we recommended that individuals and committees should be educated about FoRB violations and their impact on individuals, particularly women, and it's important in community development. And we are recommending that further understanding and cooperation between religious groups is very important to address discrimination and promote tolerance. Harmful cultural practices, we wish that we advocate for gender equitable policies, especially in leadership. Also setting up local networks to monitor FoRB violations and hold institutions accountable. Those are the few recommendations that we feel we can make following our challenges. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well done. Well done. Well done. Yes.
Thank
For that elaborate presentation. Sometimes it's painful to listen to some of those experiences. And we are encouraged that we are listening so that we can begin to do something about them. So thank you, Dr. once again. And
thank you.
we can keep our questions. At least we listen to the second presenter. Then if we have questions, comments, and another session on the way forward, we'll do that towards the end. So without further ado, allow me to welcome Dr. Evans.
Yes, thank you, Dora. You can hear me, yeah?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
We hear you. We hear you.
Yeah, so I want to begin by thanking Dr. Regina. Thank you for your good presentation. I also want to thank a few members here. First, I want to thank the Mora who has given us the chance, at least to represent them here, down here in Coast. I also want to thank our Bishop, the Right Reverend Dr. Alphonse Mwaro, who gave us the opportunity to participate in the Mora's activities down here in Mombasa. I cannot forget to thank my sister Dorcas Karaoke, who really assisted us. Actually, what we are presenting is a summary of what is in that report. So thank you, my sister Dorcas. Down here, we were two coordinators. We are two coordinators. I cannot forget also to mention Harry Hayanga was with me down here. We worked together. And then we had two young people who assisted us in collecting the data. So we really want to thank them so much. Now, having said that, I think Dorcas Karaoke has given us the process, how it was, the whole overview of what happened in the survey. So I don't need to go back to talk about all those things. I had indicated that I would speak them out, but I don't need. I will go straight to the findings. Here in Mombasa, the issue of the methodology is just as it was. We had the questionnaires, which were actually filled online. And then, of course, we had the focus group, where we had 2, 8, 8, so 16. And then when it comes to online questionnaires, we gave 111 people. And then after that, now the findings as they were indicated in the report, because my understanding was we were to present what was already indicated in the report after the analysis. And I will now give what was the findings in Kenya. Now, the key findings in Kenya, I will give them based on the objectives. So the first objective, as it is indicated in the report, was to undertake, as we indicated, was to understand the magnitude of the FoRB violations in the project. And in the coast Kenya, what was actually given in the report was that about 52% experienced violations down here in Mombasa, with 39.64% encountering these violations about 1 to 2 times, and 56.7% rating them not as very severe. We also have harassment and discrimination in employment down here, where most issues down here in coast. The study also showed that the rate of witnessing FoRB violations in Mombasa here or coast was about 68.4%. In the second objective, where we were trying to undertake, where we are trying to assess the causes and the consequences of religious and cultural violations and their correlation with the human rights, we realized that after the analysis here in Mombasa, the respondents actually did not report any specific causes. And we were trying to find out why they skipped that we left with the consultants. So we didn't have anything, any report on that. On the third objective, where we were aiming to develop further plans of action to promote and respect religious freedom and enhance it within the communities, the findings indicated varying levels of familiarity, knowledge, and also engagement with FoRB across the project, across here down in Mombasa. In fact, when we were doing the interviews, especially the group discussion, focus group discussions, we realized some of us here did not understand what is all this about FoRB, you know, and they had a lot of misconception concerning that. And that is why in the analysis down here in Mombasa, it relatively showed a very higher familiarity, about 3.05 mean. And then the engagement was about 3.19. But faced the cultural coercion issues with the respondents noting parents did not allow their children to marry from different religions. That's what we noticed here during the interview. That even amongst Christians, if you are an Anglican and you are to marry a Catholic, from what we got from the discussions, there would be resistance, you know. And then in the fourth objective, where we aim to support the design and indicators articulating the evidence based on the recommendation and findings. In Kenya or down here in Mombasa, the participants highlighted the need to have civic education and also home-based religious education and interfaith dialogue and capacity building, especially for women, because we realized after the interview that women knew very little about FoRB. So they needed to be educated on this. And that's why we discovered that the capacity building was very important, especially for women. And in the fifth objective, where we were to monitor changes in women's rights in the specific regions, especially here in Mombasa, we discovered a notable indicator was a reduction in the radicalization of Muslim youth against Christians, which is true because of a lot of education has been done down here. Muslims and the Christians, according to the reports that we got, they have come together and they have educated the dangers of radicalization. So in the interviews, an indication was noted that there is a decline in the radicalization of Muslims youth. The recommendations from the report in Mombasa down here in Coast, we realized enhancing civic education was very important, and particularly in the rural areas. So the recommendation here was to empower women as they practice their beliefs, freedom. And the other one, we noted that it's good to promote home-based religious education so that children and women also in particular can learn about that. And also emphasizing the importance of educating children about their own religion and respecting different religions from a young age is crucial. The reason here is, in the interview, we discovered that children here, if they are Muslims, they are brought up in such a way that they hate those who are Christians. You know, there's a lot of indoctrination, you know, against the Christians, especially in the madrasa classes. And at the same time, even the Christian children, when they're in the Sunday school, they are taught this idea of saying Muslims are Al-Shabaab. It is entering into the minds of these children. And so that's why the recommendation is here that children should be brought up at a very young age, respecting other different religions. The other one is establishing more forums for interfaith dialogue. This is at least to enhance cohesion between different faiths, is highly recommended. And also working with the county government and community representatives so that there will be an understanding, and also a forum where issues related to FoRB could be addressed. And when we were interviewing the key informant, who happened to have been the deputy governor of Kilifi County, this issue came out very clearly, and she indicated that she's working very hard with the church, the religious leaders, Muslims and others, together with the county government, to make sure that the interfaith dialogue are highly. Just a minute.
Okay, you can carry on, Dr.
Sorry. There's somebody who was entering. So I was saying in the interview, when we were having it with the key informant, who happened to have been the deputy governor of Kilifi. So this issue of actually establishing forums for interfaith dialogue came up, and she indicated that she's working very hard to make sure at least in Kilifi, maybe some part of Mombasa, because she comes from Mombasa, though she is the deputy governor there, so that at least the interfaith dialogue is completely enhanced for cohesion between the different faiths. Again, working with the county government, again, I have said that, and then focusing on building the capacity of women, I had mentioned that, so that they can participate actively in decision-making process is very vital. And in addition, also tracking and addressing the radicalization of the youth as a recommendation, and ensuring that proper teaching and understanding of different religions and increasing women participation in key decision-making committees are recommended. In our discussion, in our interview, the women that we interviewed indicated very clearly here, they are not so much involved in the decision-making, and especially the Muslims women. Even when they attend in worship places, it indicated that they are not freely allowed, but it is changing slowly by slowly. And so that's why we are recommending this, so that when women are allowed to participate fully in decision-making, at least this will actually make the understanding of the FoRB issue to be known here down in Coast. Again, establishing mechanism like suggestion boxes that came up and online platforms so that we can gather the feedback on FoRB issues, and practices was also suggested. The issue of the suggestion box, it came out in the interview, and more so particularly in the churches. You know, the women suggested if that can be there, at least they are able to give their feedback as far as FoRB is concerned. And now, as we can see, these recommendations, the aim here is to create a very understanding and sustainable approach that will help to promote and respect religious freedom and women's rights. And this will ensure that this project which we are doing, it will be meaningful, and the effect of it will actually be very strong down here in Coast. I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Evans. Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation and some insights from the coastal area of Kenya, that is Mombasa. Dola, I think, as I mentioned earlier, you were part and parcel of this conversation. But even before I throw this question to you, I want us to really acknowledge the people who are following this conversation online. We really appreciate your presence and following us, of course, including a very good friend and brother from Cameroon, Sheikh Abdulaziz. We really appreciate your being with us and your following this conversation. Now, Dola, having listened to the two presentations, that is from Cameroon and from Kenya, I'm just curious on the magnitude of the FoRB violations against women and how these two scenarios compare, and probably if there is anything that is unique or common when we talk about FoRB violations, particularly those target women.
Thank you, Sam, and thanks to all the presenters for the wonderful presentations. Allow me to also acknowledge Brother Olivier from Burundi. Can see you. Thank you very much for joining us. And now straight to your question, Sam. I'll talk about two key outcomes that I noticed in the process, and the outcome of the process. One, as Regina did put, that the violations, if you look at it across board, they are higher in Cameroon compared to the other two countries. Even though we are talking about two countries now, it's much higher in Cameroon, followed by Nigeria, and a bit lower in Kenya. That came out very strongly. The level of awareness is also, there's a lot of ignorance around the issue of FoRB in Cameroon. The level is high in Cameroon, followed by Nigeria, then Kenya. But on the flip side of it, it was quite interesting to realize that in Cameroon, there's higher levels of participation in matters that relate to FoRB than in the other two countries. That was quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that the level of participation on forums and meetings and anything that has to do with violations and FoRB, especially for women, was higher in Cameroon. And this could be attributed to the fact that when the violations are higher, probably the levels of participation are also higher. That's how I personally looked at it. That is projected up there. The other thing that came out, that the level of awareness in terms of FoRB was higher in Kenya, then followed by Nigeria, and very low in Cameroon. Broadly, you'll quickly say that there is so much work that needs to be done in Cameroon, rightly so. But the other argument will be, could it be that in these other two countries, there are other factors that we did not put into consideration? And an example that was given was that you would say that FoRB violations are lower in Kenya, but could it be that they are not reported, or people are not aware whether there are violations or not? So those are things that moving forward we might want to interrogate, but most importantly, pay much attention to, that it's not a conclusion that when it comes out, then we leave it at that. Yes.
Hold that thought there, especially when you talk about when moving forward. And before I come to you, Bishop, I want to also say that we are opening our mics. If you have any question, comment, or something, you can talk to us directly. You can just have a chance to say something. Or you can drop us your question through the comment section and we read it and it will be addressed. We have a panel of experts here and we also have a very able Bishop here. Now, Bishop, you've listened to what the findings, key findings were from the baseline survey. And you've listened to the two presentations from Southwest Cameroon and of course from Kenya. And I just want to put you on the spot a little bit. Would you tell us maybe from where you sit, how do you think religious leaders, and even before we talk about Procmura, but as religious leaders and religious communities, what can they do in terms of addressing some of these FoRB violations that target women?
Thank you very much, Sam, and thank you so much to the three presenters, beginning from Dorcas and Lydia and Dr. Mwangi. They have done a very good job. I listened to all of them keenly and addressing specifically the Cameroonian and Mombasa situations. I will just use maybe a general word that we should continue to engage religious leaders. I'm happy that this is a baseline survey.
Sure.
They have come out with clear findings on the ground. And that makes the implementation phase for me a bit more clear. So it's not like, what are we going to do? They have come out with clear results, clear findings, and evidences. In this case, we will need to engage religious leaders from both Islam and Christianity in our approach to the implementation. And we should also be very particular and specific to the topics that they have raised in their recommendations. Dialogue. It's not everybody that can talk about dialogue. It's a specialist area, and we need to really get the specialists to talk about it and address them. And I look at the Cameroon situation, Dola mentioned it. It looks a little bit serious, but if we listen to Lydia? Regina, sorry, Regina. Yes. It's like since 2017, there have been a little bit of crisis in that area. Rebels virtually reigning in the area. And so it means central government virtually has nothing to do there or no power over there. In that case, where there's no central authority and everybody is virtually doing whatever the person likes, you can understand the crisis there. But it doesn't mean we throw our hands in the skies. Can we find a way of going into that place, meeting with
both Muslim and Christian leaders. I'm happy she keeps referring to the Imam. It means that Imam has a lot of authority, and then people listen to him. People like that can be used as a religious leader, and people of like mind on the Christian side to see how we can bring them together in our implementation phase, to see how we can begin to talk. You have all said it right. The issue seems a bit, the knowledge of it seems a bit low in those countries and regions and areas. If you listen to Dr. Mwengi, it's like, yes, the strategy for them to implement it is clear on dialogue. Again, as I said, it is important. But what we should be looking at is, even though the program is tagged for women, but if you listen to both presentations, I'm talking of Mombasa and Cameroon, minors, young women, young men are all involved. In other words, they are affected. The minors in Cameroon are affected, forced into early marriages, and so on and so forth. Minors have come, the Moboro, she mentioned, Regina mentioned the Moboro, who are young men, young boys who have come into the city center, and they are either employed as drivers or being misused by other people of that category. And so the challenge is with the minors as well as the women. So I'm happy, and we are very thankful to them for the detailed report. They have done thorough investigations and have found results, and I'm happy about their recommendations. So in the implementation phase, we as an organization should then begin to look at the specialists in those areas and engage religious leaders in both regions very clearly. Religious leaders. I'm not talking of only Christian religious leaders, nor only Muslim religious leaders. If we listen to Dr. Mwengi, for example, it's not only inter-religious matters, it is even also intra-religious, like between Anglican, between Christians and among Christians, as well as between Christians and Muslims there. And so we are very grateful for the findings, very detailed indeed. When it comes to the implementation phase, we must, as an organization, get the specialists to engage the people. We ourselves should be prepared to engage them. And I'm sure they will listen. They will listen. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Bishop. That's why it's really great to have you with us here in the studio. If you have a question, you can just raise your hand, and our team here will give you an opportunity to raise your question or a comment. And if you have also a question or comment, if you don't want to speak, you can talk to us through the chat or the message section. But I hope we still have Dr. Regina, because there is something she mentioned. Dr. Regina, there is something you mentioned, and maybe I got a bit intrigued. When you mentioned something to do with culture, I think if I heard you right, there was an aspect of culture that you mentioned in terms of your findings. If you can just take 1 minute, for instance, to give us examples that you realized through your survey, or when you were carrying out this study. You mentioned something to do with culture in relation to FoRB and women in Southwest Cameroon, please.
Thank you. Thank you. In relation to women in religion and cultural matters, from the discussions we had at the level of women and the religious leaders, also found out that traditional practices have a great influence on folk practice within the Southwest region in Cameroon. Culturally, from the Muslim perspective, women cannot sit on the same chair with men in the mosque. And after some findings, we're being informed that they have a particular structure of women and men. Women, they have their own position in church, and the men, they have their own position in the mosque. In addition to that, there are certain periods a woman can perform certain religious functions, especially when she is on menstruation. Those are the aspects we talk of culture. If you are menstruating, you don't carry out certain functions. Those are the things we're being informed during our focus group discussion. And it was clearly stated that the period during this period, the woman is considered, they believe it's inscribed I don't know, we're told it's part of their religion. When you are menstruating, you don't take part in certain religious activity. That is why I said culture. And traditionally, women can belong to traditional society and traditional councils as the age women who have been stopped bearing children are allowed. And even there are certain issues they are restricted from contributing their ideas. So, that is what I talked of religious and cultural violations of women's rights. Doesn't mean that if you are menstruating, you should not talk. So if it is something very serious, you go and stay home. So that's violation of the right of a woman because of the innate biological, I don't know. We'll talk
Thank
about
you, Regina.
woman. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. It's a very important point you are raising, and we need to know the borderlines. You keep using cultural and traditional and religion, the three of them together. Sometimes when the three combine, it is difficult to actually draw the dividing line. All the expansive religions, Islam and Christianity, came to meet African culture. The question then is, what was the African cultural position on some of these practices before the arrival of Islam and Christianity? And it is very important to note that in some instances, some of these expansive religious cultural practices have found their way into the or highlighted in the expansive religions. And so, yes, at many parts of Africa, even before Islam or Christianity came, the menstruating woman was not actually completely welcome to society. There are certain parts of Africa, she's not even supposed to cook for her husband. In some parts of Africa, before Islam and Christianity came, the woman was banned to stay what they call behind the house until the menstrual week is over. Is it a combination or an infiltration of that African cultural practice? We need to investigate all those things. But you see, these are processes we need to actually start, and the church and the mosque must begin to look at them. Because religion is a force of liberation, not just to bond people all the more. It's a force for liberation. It's a force of hope, or a source of hope for many, many people. And so it is important that these findings are coming out. And I remember about 10, 20 years ago, the issue of genital mutilation was a big question in West Africa. When the church at the mosque came in, I can tell you that in many, many communities in West Africa, female genital mutilation is a thing of a past. And I can testify to that. And so that is why the findings are very, very important. So it means we need to look at it very strongly. I can tell even in Muslim communities in West Africa, strong Muslim communities, my area is a very strong, my home area is a very strong Muslim community. And I can tell you that more than 50 years now, they have stopped female genital mutilation, following the education that took place over 20 years now. And so it is something that we can look into. The cultural influence on religion is very, very strong. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Bishop. Just probably for those who are following us and they don't know where our general advisor is coming from, he's coming from Ghana, especially when he's talking about our home. He's joining us all the way from Ghana. And before I come to you, Dola, I can see Dr. Evans' hands is up. So, and again, we have Patricia, our friend who is following us all the way from Ghana. She's got her hand up as well. But Patricia, you'll allow me to go to Dr. Evans, then we'll come to you. Dr. Evans, you have your hand up. Maybe you want to say something.
Yes.
But even as you say that, you also mentioned something very important in your presentation that I wanted to follow up. You mentioned something to do with some findings that a FoRB in some instances in the coastal area was regarded as a foreign concept. Not all were so familiar with FoRB. Maybe you can also take a minute to elaborate on that, even as you tell us more about your comment.
Okay, let me start with that. I think this freedom of religion and beliefs, there is a misconception that when you talk about the freedom of religion and beliefs, what we got from the people we interviewed, it's like people now have freedom. They can worship anything, including the devil, because they have the freedom to do that.
Very important point.
So
Yes.
we were wrestling
Very
with that.
important observation. Yes.
Yes, we
Very
were
important
wrestling with that
observation.
because it's like, what is this are you talking about? You know, are you telling us that we are free to worship anything? You know, in some instances, we were surprised that people didn't even know, okay, the freedom of religion is there. They know it is in our constitution. But then again, when we brought in the idea of belief, you know, and so that's why we had that misconception. It looked like it is a new idea, you know. It's like they have never heard of that. Yes, they know there's the freedom of religion, but now when you come to beliefs, they are like, okay, so I can believe whatever I want, you know, and you can understand. Now, the other aspect which is connected to that is culture again, which we actually discussed. And one lady was saying, if you talk about the freedom of religion, so it means, in fact, she gave an example that if I'm an Anglican and I'm married by a Catholic, so are you telling me that I remain an Anglican, and culturally I'm supposed to follow the man? You see, so that came out, and it was like the culture dictates where the lady is married, that is where you go. You know, so there's no issue of saying I want to remain an Anglican if my husband is a Catholic. You know, so the whole issue was culture is somehow interfering with the freedom of religion, because the woman now has no freedom of religion, cannot choose any religion. You follow what your husband, the religion of your husband, and if you don't do the culture, you are then people start talking. I mean, I know that is like now the wife is on top of you. You know, Kiswahili tunasema amekaliwa. That is why the wife cannot join her. Now, these are Christians, coming to Muslims. So the same issue that Nani Regina was mentioning. The Muslims women, they cannot share they cannot be the mosque together with the men. You know, they have their own, they have another room behind there where they go to worship, you know. They cannot also pray. Women cannot pray in the presence of men, Muslim men. They cannot. If there's a Muslim man, the Muslim woman cannot pray. They don't have that freedom. But again, something that came up was that nowadays, at least, they are even allowed to study Quran, not like it was there, the way it was there before. Because the women are not even allowed to go to madrasa. But the Muslim women who are in our interviewing panel, they said nowadays, at least, they are allowed even to have teachers in their homes to teach them about the Quran. But there before, they were not even allowed to touch it, you know. So I thought it is important I say that because social cultural issues are happening here down in coast. It's affecting freedom of religion and beliefs. And next thing, I beg to, I have a class starting at 5. Dora,
It's
are you
okay,
giving
Dr.
me? Yes.
We say thank you for
Thank you.
that, but let me
Yes.
say that we are getting clear in our direction of implementation. The issue of socio-cultural influence on religion is very, very important, because the last point he raised on women not being allowed to go to madrasa or pray in the presence of men is a purely socio-cultural matter. Again, in the mosque, even though there's a dividing line, women stay behind, and the dividing line in many cases is like a cloth curtain. It's not a wall. So they are able to follow the men's prayers. Only that in the presence of men, a woman cannot lead prayer. So we in the implementation phase, we are taking note of all that. Yeah. In the implementation phase, we will look at the cultural and social interface with religion. And so we will take note of all that. But we are grateful. We are grateful to you. Yeah.
So thank you, Bishop. We welcome you to Mombasa. So
thank you very much. We will come. We will come. We are working on that. I just came last
Bishop
night.
Bishop will be very happy to see you.
Exactly. I just came last night from West Africa. So,
but you are here up to December.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Dora, I'm soon.
I know.
Okay.
God bless you. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, yes. Dr. Evans. Please, Reverend Patricia, you can take a minute to either raise your question or comment. Reverend Patricia is our good friend, and she's joining us all the way from Ghana.
She's muted.
Kindly unmute Reverend Patricia.
Up.
Kindly unmute Reverend Patricia. Okay.
Yes.
You're welcome, Reverend Patricia. What is your question or comment?
Thank you very much, and a very good afternoon to you all from Accra, Ghana. And assalamu alaikum to our Muslim sisters and brothers. Of course, I'm Patricia Kwenetegbagbo. And I want to particularly salute our GA, who never mentioned to us or to me that he was going to Kenya, even though we were together some 2 days ago. Yes, in Kechima for the peace conference. GA, Akwaba, Karibu, Kenya.
When will you stop being like this?
It's okay. You never told me, but it's good seeing you there with the central office staff. Yeah.
All right, go on. We are here.
Yes,
thank you very much for
proceed.
welcoming me. Thank you very much for welcoming me.
Yes. I wish to applaud the central office for yet another success chalked for instituting this baseline survey for women or for women. Yes, I also wish to commend all the presenters for their diligence. Mine is not a question per se, it's more of a suggestion. You know, in Ghana, we do say that it's a relatively peaceful when it comes to freedom of religion, because we coexist with our religious others in peace. We don't have any issues. And I want to say that that is seen at the general level, but it's difficult to maybe speak when it comes to FoRB for women, because I want to believe that at the individual levels or what happens in people's homes cannot be told outside. So maybe we would want to consider Ghana for a second phase, should there be that opportunity, so that we also carry out that survey where women will be spoken to, or to find out from them what pertains when it comes to FoRB for women within the Ghanaian context. I think the findings from that will also help us to know if there is any difference between FoRB in general, as far as Ghana is concerned, vis-a-vis FoRB for women in the Ghanaian context so that we can have a current data that speaks to it in specific terms. Thank you very much, and God bless you all for the good work that you are doing. Akpe.
Thank you very much, Messi Akpeo.
Thank you, Reverend Patricia. I will still stick to Reverend Patricia because I remember last time I had a lot of problems pronouncing the other two names when you were here at the Prokumura Media Center. But it's great hearing from you again. I think now we're wrapping up this, and before I hand it over to our GA to close for us, I just wanted to get a comment from my colleague Dola here on the way forward, or probably what are some of the immediate steps that we're taking from here now?
Yes, thanks, my colleague Sam. And thanks, Patricia. It was happy to hear from you. It's been a while. And one of the key recommendations that has come from Patricia is to widen this. And that I think also stands out, that even as we think about this and moving forward, we're only talking about 3 different countries and 3 specific regions in those countries. But as you hear from Patricia, there's a demand for this kind of engagement moving forward.
Sure.
So it's something that we want to think about. But away from that, I want to say that the report is available and will be made available for those who are interested in going through the report. And it's a public document that Prokumura, I think, allows us to pick and learn from it. And most importantly, we can even use it if we have interventions at our own levels. So it is a report that, yes, done by Prokumura, but a document for all well-intentioned institutions and individuals to move forward with. So that is one. 2, the project, the Dignity project, that is for women project in Sub-Saharan Africa, was designed in a way that it responds to the first question or concern that has been raised. That is the level of awareness. And in the immediate future, the awareness begins to happen straight with the training of trainers who will then begin to engage at different levels, mainly targeting religious leaders on one level, but also the traditional leaders or elders within those communities, and awareness across board and with women too. So the awareness question has been captured in this design of the project in a way that really impresses us, but it's never enough.
Yeah,
so
sure.
What basically this means is that the work out there, looking at the enormous challenges, especially in the 3 different countries, and mainly Cameroon, it means it will never be enough. And so at the central office, we could begin a conversation about upscaling this to a certain level. So that will happen internally. And then lastly, I think that there are recommendations that will require that as an office, we sit down and engage and just answer to that. They might have not been captured in the design of the project, but it's something that internally we want to sit down and say, what do we prioritize and how do we want to move forward? What is of urgency to us as an organization to respond to? And we are going to be working very, very closely with the coordinators in the 3 different countries in their specific regions. And it's a flexible kind of engagement moving forward, so that issues that are emerging are not put aside because the project was designed in a certain way. So that I thought I should mention. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dola. And we have the father of the house, and I'll give you, GA, the honors of maybe your last words. Sorry, we have a hand? Olivier. Oh,
Yep.
Okay, thank you. This production is enabled by a whole team and not just us who are sitting here. Sorry?
And even check. Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, I wanted to acknowledge him here because he is.
Okay, before we close,
thank
thank you so very much, our colleagues who are behind the cameras. We can have a minute for our brother Olivier for a comment or something.
Okay.
Olivier is joining us from
Burundi.
From Burundi.
Yes.
Okay, you're welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much for our panelists and much acknowledgement to our father in the Lord from Ghana. I am a little bit acquainted with West Africa, where I studied and lived quite to 10 years in Nigeria. And upon returning to Burundi, the issue of FoRB really took much of my concern based on the experience I have seen as a pastor, and also the influence of Islam within our various nations, which I know everybody knows. But the topic is much interesting to me, and I would like really to commend Procumra and also share a thought, not a question, but a thought of encouragement, and also to extend these baseline studies to some other region, because especially in our African context, there is a place the culture gives to a woman, and there is a place religion gives to a woman within our societies. For example, I don't know if you can just shift into your video and see my picture, just as can you put on my video, please?
It's you who should turn on.
I
the camera?
tried, I'm not seeing where my camera to.
Oh, sorry. You want to share something?
Yeah.
No, I wanted it. Yeah, it was like the kind of cloth I put on. It's like a kind of Nigeria Senegalese, most used in West Africa. But in Burundi, in my culture and context as a pastor, it has been like a stumbling stone to some of my fellow ministers and even Christian, because it has a cultural connotation that anyone who wears like this kind of Muslim attire is as a Christian, people will start questioning your belief and also the kind of relationship you are having with what you believe.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's a cultural.
Yeah, continue, Olivier.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay.
It is still not coming, so let him.
Yep. Okay,
Oh,
I think now it's okay.
Yes.
Okay. For example,
adjust
this
it a little bit.
Okay.
Adjust your camera a little bit so that your head is not cut. Perfect.
Good. Okay. Yes, as I was saying, for example, the kind of attire I put on, it's really an issue of discord among the Christian in my Burundi context. Meanwhile, for me as a learned servant of God, it has nothing to do with my faith. But because of the cultural point of view of our people or my context where I am, this has been an issue with to some of my fellow ministers and also to some other Christian faith. Relating this issue of women within our context is still also a big issue, which I use just the simple sample of my cloth to share how deep Procumra should really invest in this kind of baseline studies across our countries, across the context, the continent, because even some of the places where, for example, religion, like in the cities where we have Muslims and Christian, they can still tolerate that kind of cultural differences. But deep within, you will notice that there are some differences or the flow will not be there. And this is one of the aspects I really want to commend Procumra and also to request that this kind of studies should be really invested much, so we can really come up to the point where our fellow Muslim and Christian can still look at FoRB as has to do with the right of the people, not really in some context on what we believe. Someone said, I think it's Dr. Reverend Evans, that FoRB, it's like a Western belief that is being thrown to Burundians. Let me share with this that some of you in our nation, like in Burundi, in constitution, if it banned atheism, which is an issue that has been really bothering the Burundians and even human rights activists, because it is clearly stated, even though you don't believe in God, you are to keep your own belief within your own corner. But you will always notice that as human beings, we are called to interrelate with others. And that relationship will always make people know that why so person does not go to church on Sunday as a Christian nation. And this will now be raised as a point of suspicion to the person, and investigation will now start from there. And that kind of person does not have anything to protect him, because our constitution has clearly stated that. Thank you for that contribution. Maybe we'll continue to think and broaden this topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. I know me and you are moderating a FoRB platform for sometime in the coming
December.
weeks. I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Olivier, and it's great. As you can see, the conversation is cutting across the continent.
Yeah.
Sheikh, you are on air.
Okay, I'm
You
Sheikh
can talk.
Abdelaziz from Cameroon.
That's right.
Yes, but I need to speak French.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead.
D'accord. Bon, ben, à propos du sujet qui consiste, n'est-ce pas, l'enquête de Pogmora, je dirais que l'enquête commandée par Pogmora sur la promotion de la liberté de religion ou de conviction pour la femme en Afrique subsaharienne est un pas significatif vers la compréhension des défis auxquels les femmes sont confrontées dans l'existence de leur liberté de religion dans ces régions. Objectif de l'enquête. Évaluation de la situation actuelle. Comprendre comment les femmes vivent leur foi dans des contextes de tensions religieuses et de conflits. Identifier les obstacles. Mettre en lumière la barrière que les femmes rencontrent pour pratiquer leur religion librement. Promouvoir des solutions. À propos des recommandations pour améliorer la situation des femmes en matière de liberté de religion, le sud-ouest Cameroun fait face à des multiples obstacles qui font en sorte que les femmes ne puissent pas pratiquer leur religion librement. Entre autres, les femmes sont souvent en première ligne des conflits. Vous êtes sans ignorer que à l'heure actuelle, dans le sud-ouest Cameroun, il y a une crise qui impacte toute la vie sociale, y compris la religion. Les femmes ne peuvent plus aller librement dans les églises. Pour celles des musulmans, aller dans les mosquées. Alors, il faut tenir en compte cet aspect, n'est-ce pas, de crise sociopolitique qui, n'est-ce pas, est un véritable fléau contre la liberté des religions dans le sud-ouest Cameroun. Des témoignages révèlent des actes de discrimination et de harcèlement dans les communautés. Alors, comme recommandation face à ces fléaux, nous avons la sensibilisation et l'éducation. L'éducation est très importante. Il faut éduquer les femmes afin qu'elles puissent se prendre en main, afin qu'elles puissent, n'est-ce pas, être posées, n'est-ce pas, pesées sur la balance, qu'elles puissent faire un contrepoids face, n'est-ce pas, à des cultures et des traditions ancrées qui font en sorte, tout à l'heure, notre compatriote l'a dit, que les femmes musulmanes ne vont pas à la madrasa avec les hommes. Ça, ce sont des traditions ancrées en islam et qu'il faut revoir justement. Il faut mettre en place des programmes pour sensibiliser les communautés aux droits des femmes en matière de liberté et religion. En matière de liberté de religion, autant pour moi, il faut également renforcer les capacités, former les femmes leaders religieuses pour qu'elles puissent défendre leurs droits et leur communauté. Il faut également diagnostiquer et mettre sur pied des dialogues interreligieux, encourager des espaces de dialogue entre différentes communautés religieuses pour promouvoir la paix et la compréhension. Comme conclusion, cette enquête met en évidence la nécessité urgente d'agir pour protéger et promouvoir la liberté des religions des femmes en Afrique subsaharienne. Les résultats peuvent servir de base et des initiatives visant à renforcer les droits des femmes et à promouvoir la cohésion pacifique entre différentes communautés religieuses. Je vous remercie.
Right.
Hello?
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Sheikh.
Thank you. Thank
Merci
you.
beaucoup. Thank you very much. Simply, Sheikh he has been following us from the beginning, and he is very happy with the findings, and he tries to let us understand, as I said earlier, the impact and influence of culture in religions and the impact of the local community or the influence on the local community on even religious practices. And then he refers to the socio-political crisis in the southwest of Cameroon, which has thrown everything, including education, in jeopardy. But he's also suggesting strongly that, or recommending that in our implementation, education for both men, women, and children is very, very important. And so he sees the complication of culture with religion. And so that can help the rights of women as he sees it. So it's more or less asking the same question of the influence of culture and community.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the beauty of Prokumura being a bilingual. And it's great seeing our brothers and sisters from the francophone.
Merci
West
beaucoup,
Africa.
Sheikh Abdulaziz. C'est moi,
Thank
Nathan
you.
Sabine, le Conseil
Yes,
Général.
yes. Thank you, Mr. Nathan.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir, and thank you, Sheikh. It's great. It's always a honor seeing you following our conversation, and it's great for you being part of this conversation. I can also see our very own Dr. McAfee, who is joining us from Ghana. If you have something to say, you can take a minute.
No mute. Up.
Dr. McAfee.
I know she's far away up country doing some assignments for the university. I don't know.
Okay, I think if she's not ready, Bishop.
Yes.
We wind this up.
Yes. I want to actually express Prokumura's profound gratitude to Dola and to Dorcas, to Regina, to Dr. Wengi, for the commitment that they have all given to this work. It's a very revealing finding and very, very important for us as an organization, because we may be dealing with the surface, but things like this are actually very realistic. For example, if you go to run a program for Christian-Muslim relations and encounter the religious leaders, you may never go down to this level.
That's sure.
We meet the big people up there, and scarcely will you discover or hear things like this. So the findings are very clear, and it's like the work of Procmura FoRB is clearly cut out, and you know how to go about it. So we express our profound gratitude to you and everybody. And let me say on a very personal note that I am very happy for Sheikh Abdulaziz. He's been with us throughout for nearly 2-3 hours now. When the technical problem was there, he was hanging in there. And we thank him so much for the input. We want to say that, yes, we have heard it. It is now left onto us to take the requisite or necessary steps to see how far we can go. And once we get it clear, we will actually see what we can do about it. So we say thank you to everybody for being part of us. Participants as high as 17 were all over the place across the continent. We are very grateful to all of you. And we know that we will do what we can do. Pray for us and keep supporting us from anywhere that you are. And we trust that it will be possible for us to go ahead with it. So we say thank you. And if this is the end, we say thank you to everybody. Asantini, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Bishop. Thank you, Dola. Thank you to our very able panelists. I don't want to mention them again. Our bishop has mentioned them. And thank you for all of those who have been following this conversation from across Africa. And that brings us to the end of this particular webinar. And as we promised, we will bring you the Nigeria edition of the very same baseline survey. But until then, I want to remind us that we can follow this conversation through our social media platforms. That is on Facebook, we are Procmura, that is the Program for Christian-Muslim Relations in Africa. On Twitter, we are Procmura_Prica, and you can also go to our website, www.procmura-prica.org, and you can also watch and follow this conversation through our YouTube channel, that is Procmura Prica. And until next time, I've been your host, Sam Abuya. God bless you. God bless Africa.